go out with the racing portion.
All right. Shots of oil. Nice.
Come on. Throw me a little extra.
But I was just surprised it has a almost built-in resistance right there.
Yeah, it's more fun.
Gearbox is cold though. Gearbox is only 29.
Yeah, they're not really going on the road and partying, you know, and then go to the racetrack.
Got to bring the car out.
Right. No, I'm okay. What about your hair? What are you gonna do with your hair?
Yeah, that's why I'm using that. Maybe it's us. Radio check. It's yours. Wants a video check. Radio check.
He needs it. He doesn't want to put his helmet on because he touches his hair.
That's right. I should go without.
We'll get you some gel. There has to be some. We're in Jersey, so people have gel around there.
I think.
Fiberglass resin?
Yeah.
That's what I use when I spike it up.
Fiberglass resin. We're in Jersey. Everyone just slicks their hair. Everyone greases their hair.
I have no Hans. No Hans. Hans and Franz. We come to pump you up. No Hans, no radio. Nothing. Nothing. We got nothing. Burning here also helps. It'll pack the air in here. Right. Spills, and then steam. It's nice. I know.
You're such a good friend. Good co-driver.
No. Tighten everything down like real. Like real. Like real. Put the radio on. It is. I'm gonna put your helmet blower on too.
This car accident in the parking lot.
It wouldn't be good for the race for India.
We'll be meeting the driver shortly. Paul Miller himself driving a number of cars, from Porsches, the K3. Look these up, Google them up too. Porsche 956, Bob Aiken, a Merkur, a Pantera, a Daytona. But the team Paul Miller Racing, Trans Am competition in the 1980s, IMSA GTO, later in the 80s, competed in Sebring, the 12-hour race, Daytona, the 24-hour race, and in 1988 won the Daytona 24. As was mentioned earlier, they transitioned to Audi Sport, and this year, we talked about it with the drivers, already starting to show a track record of accomplishment. The team competes in a series called Tudor United Sports Car Championship. 11 races around North America, a combination of sprint races and endurance races, such as the Daytona 24, Sebring 12, the 10 hours of the Le Mans during the season. We're going to meet the drivers, but let's start by taking a look at the car. I'd like to introduce Brad Kettler, who is over at the car already. Brad Kettler is our Director of Operations. How does this car transition from the production car that you buy here to this race car?
Well, what you start with, basically, going down to the chassis of the car. The chassis of the car is the same as you would find in this production car over here. It, of course, has a safety cage put into it, and it's built at the factory, and then some of the suspension pickup points, mostly from the center of the front wheel forward, and from the rear wheel center rearward, those are different. The center of the car, the chassis of the car, the basic elements of the placement of the engine, gearbox, most of the primary components is the same as you would find in your production R80 that you would buy for the street. Also, this car fundamentally shares about 54–55% of its total parts are comprised of parts which are actually streetcar or streetcar derived parts that the car is assembled from.
It's actually confirmed for me a little nuance that the suspension pieces on this car are not race parts. They are actually production parts that you can order at the dealership. That's how stout this car is.
Fundamentally, there's a few little differences. For example, like if technicians that work on these cars every day would see the wheel off, they would recognize the control arm. However, then in a lot of places the rubber bushings and the things that gives the car the ride quality on the road are removed, and it has single piece spherical bearings put in it and so forth, so that it's more robust and the alignment is more accurate.
And here comes some of the fun of racing. I put quotes around the word fun. The engine in this car, the race car, is the production-based V10 5.2 liter, but it actually is a production motor. It has some adjustments to electronics, maybe exhaust, but it is a stock motor, so a race car has to run the stock motor because it would be too powerful for this class. So your production motor is stout enough to race against Ferrari, Aston Martin, Porsche, etc., etc.
And not only is it a production engine that's strong enough to use in racing car, it's also restricted from the production streetcar engine. It is restricted slightly to put its power where it can be competitive with the other brands that you mentioned. The engine has an extremely long life cycle, up to 20,000 kilometers before a big service on it. This is unheard of in production-based racing cars for something to last this long. It's a great testimony to the robustness and the good engineering of the street car itself. So this engine would come off of the GT production line. All the GT engines are dynoed and checked thoroughly, and the very best ones end up in the production for the racing cars.
And top speed, what is this car capable of?
Depends on gears and aero trim, about 180 miles an hour is its top speed. It's quite fast.
And downforce, everyone talks about G's. We're going to talk about the aerodynamic tricks on this car, but what do we got here?
Well, what we have here is, there's two versions of this car. There's a Tudor version, which is the one you're looking at, and there's also an FIA GT3 version. They're identifiable by the fact that the wing on the GT3 car is much bigger and is actually suspended from the top of the wing like a swan neck. So it's quite easy to identify those. Also on the front splitter here, the dive plane and the dive plane here and the front splitter on the Tudor car is substantially smaller than the GT3 car. The Tudor series also mandates that we don't use any ABS or traction control, so it's a very, very driver's-oriented car. It's a very lively car, as the drivers will attest to you. So with the lighter downforce and without the electronic aids, they really have to be on their game.
And back to racing, you had to give up quattro.
Yes, of course. This is a two-wheel drive car. Although it has all the tunnel and all the mounts and everything for the quattro has been removed.
So, also with regulations, each series kind of dictates what they want The GT3 spec was the baseline, but when you get a chance to look at the car, check the aerodynamic diffuser in the back. That was a piece that Audi developed to support the series spec rear wing to create the aerodynamic balance. The bottom of this car is doing all the work.
Yes, as you see in some of the Tudor cars, if you look at various ones, especially like the Porsche, for example, and now the Aston Martin, they have much bigger wings on the back end of the car. Our solution was to use the bigger diffuser because it's drag neutral. You put that big wing up in the air, you have to drag it through the air, and that takes power and robs top speed from you. Our solution with the diffuser provides a downforce in the back without all the drag penalty.
Continental tires, spec for this series. What did it take to adapt this car to a particular tire?
It took a heck of a lot of work to adapt this car to be good on U.S. tracks. Our tracks tend to be a bit bumpier and so forth than the tracks this car was developed to run, so we had to develop a special suspension and spring package with different dampers, spring, roll bar, and that is to really work with the vertical spring rate of the tire. Every tire has a vertical rate and acts as a spring itself. And what we had to do was develop a package that would work along with this tire, which up to 2 years ago was completely unknown to us. So it was a fairly steep learning curve.
And to put it in perspective, less horsepower for the race car, but less weight to carry around. A production R8 ranges anywhere from 3,950 pounds, 1,795 kilo, as low as 3,600 pounds. But the race car, this one here is 2,756 pounds, 1,250 kilo.
With ballast in it, with some ballast in it. So it can be a bit lighter.
So Audi makes the right car, then they have to level it up. One of the other things about racing, it's not just sell a race car to someone like Paul Miller, let the car go out the door. Just like they want you to come back here and do the service, Audi Sport Customer Racing is a resource to the team. Talk a little bit about the collaboration, because I watch you guys on the racetrack working very, very close together with each other.
Yeah, it's very much a relationship when you sell a racing car to someone, because it's a very big investment in them. For them, there's a lot of sweat equity goes into it from the team side. And you have to trust each other and work together as partners. And we've had a really good relationship with the Paul Miller guys, with Mitchell and Bryce, and these guys have been a great group to work with and have come a long way running the car. Immediately they were doing the right things. So we consult and support them on the rules package, on any technical issue that they may have with their car. We also provide on-site, at-track parts supply, which we have a fully stocked tractor trailer that holds approximately 2 complete cars full of spares in it, so we carry all the spares that they may need, if they have an incident or have a problem. We try to be there with them to provide a solution.
I know I tie, and I know it's making it sound like a sales meeting, we're going to avoid that, but that same process of cooperating with the dealership happens at the racetrack. I'm sure I'm missing something, so why don't we open it up to questions you may have for Brad about the race car?
Do you have any aspirations to get a car at the 24-hour Le Mans someday?
That's a great question. It will happen, we feel, eventually. When the introduction of this car, the development by Audi Sport and Quattro together, was truly about, FIA GT3 was most of their focus. But it has been discussed a lot, and I think we'll see the opportunity for that to happen with the next generation of cars.
I have to use that as a setup, because in addition to running the production-based car and Brad running Audi Sport Customer Racing here, he also has a role with the Le Mans program, where the prototype, the e-tron Quattro, runs. Let me get my numbers right. 13 of the last 15 Le Mans 24s have been run by Audi. I think you own the decade, and you were there at this latest win. Tell me a little bit about what happened.
I worked for Randall Gibson's Road Sport for a long time in capacity, and I was the crew chief of the #1 car this year that unfortunately had a very bad incident early in the week, and we had to build a new car to put into the race and so forth. And it gave us a true, we had to be truly inspired group to come to the level that we were at. And it was was very interesting this year with the new rules about the fuel consumption, maximum fuel being allowed to use, and a lot of focus on the hybrid. And we were very proud of the result that we put up, and we ran a really good race, you know, against some very strong competition from Toyota and Porsche. And one little fact, Leo, we hadn't talked about, but what's something that I'm quite proud of is when you look at the Toyota that finished third on the podium, and within the same lap as our car that won the race, and you look at the amount of fuel that the two cars used, our car used 317 liters less fuel than theirs did. You put that into perspective, that's a barrel and a half. So it's a barrel and a half less fuel to run the same distance and to beat them at the same time.
So I'm going to editorialize a little because a lot of the people that I speak to think that racing should be some big honking V12, a lot of noise, burn a lot of fuel, and that's real racing. And the reality is everything from a production car like this to the exotic prototypes that connect the dots between the technology that's evolving and needs to be in our production cars is happening in racing. 24 hours of racing, God knows how many kilometers, 30% less fuel, still going plus 200 miles an hour, still going mega fast, getting the job done, just more efficiently. I know this is going to be an obvious statement looking at me. Smaller is better. I'm just telling you right now, okay? Anything smaller is better. Any other questions for Brad about the car here, the R8 LMS?
Are those, are they street brakes, or are they, I mean, because they look, the calipers don't even look that big, surprisingly. You know?
Yeah, the question was about the brakes on the car. They are not exactly street brakes, but they're based quite closely. They have a very similar caliper mounting angle and so forth. They are slightly bigger. These Brembo calipers on here are slightly bigger than the standard brakes that come on the R8, and the disc is the same size.
It's not ceramic or anything?
No, there's no ceramic brakes on this car. It's standard steel brakes.
So, thank you, Brad.
Thanks, everybody, and it's good to see everybody come out, and I hope you have a great time.
Never gonna happen. Ever. Ever. There may be another race there of another series, but I would be 99% certain F1 will never come to New Jersey. They were way ahead of their time.